Okay, new day. This is all mounted in. Looks pretty solid. I don't think you can mess with that. One of the things I thought about, a little change of heart I had for the switch back here. I don't think it's. What can't we see? There we go. Come on. For where this switch goes, I think what I'm going to do is actually take the original switch, tape the wires, and put it back in. That way it'll be in there if it's ever needed for anything. Plus it won't have that missing, and the screws will, everything will be there. So I think that's one of the things I'm going to do. So I'm going to pull that piece of tape off. Got the soldering iron heating up. I want to come on, piece of tape. If I don't know it was going to be on there that good, I would have left it alone. And I'll fix the wire for the switch, extend that, get that longer. That should be about it. And then I brought my better diagonals up to cut that off. So yeah, I'm going to tape these wires. I'll just tape them so that they're in a little cocoon and it doesn't look like there's a bunch of wires just hanging there. Of course, there will be just a bunch of wires hanging there. And so that'll take care of that. Okay, so there you have it. Here's the wiring all taped up and back in for the switch on the back for the 120, 220, 240 volt switch back here. Let me point up to it so you can see what I mean about that. I just put it back in right here. So that's back in. The what else did I find? Oh, let's see. So here's the blue wire. I replaced that. I'm not sure how long of a piece I need, so I'll leave that go till I'm ready to put that on. So that goes here. So in the meantime, this seems like a good time to replace the battery in here. Like I said, one of the things too I wanted to tell you was back down in here. Let me point down a little bit. I still didn't get a method to cut these screws off level. I mean, you could do it with a Dremel or anything. I'm going to leave them there for now and see if they're that much in the way. Then I think I'm going to have to take off the board underneath. If not, I'll leave them there and kind of leave a mental note. Like next time I take that board off to remove those two screws. I'll have to see how much in the way they are. So what I'm going to do right now is take off this top panel here with the speaker in it, and then take off the cover for the car control. I believe that's what it's called, and I should be able to get to the battery to replace that. So I believe there's 4 screws on each side, but you only have to take off. Initially, I think I just take off the first 2 to get that off, and then the other 2 take the cover off. But we'll see. Let's see what happens. I'm going to remagnetize my screwdriver. Take that off. There's one. And you can kind of see which ones are holding what on. But the wiring going back there is very small, and there's a lot of connectors. So taking apart's not the issue, but putting it back together, just be careful that you don't smash wires or the like. Okay, there's 4 out. So now the speaker should lift right on up out of here. And I'll just lean it right over this way. Where's my piece of insulating foam? I'll put it right over here onto that. So now you can kind of get a look at too how I did that. Let me see if I can control this so that you can see what I did here. This was years ago. But the LEDs I put in there, I was able to save the original grommets and soldered the LEDs and put them right in there. This red wire, somebody had replaced the light bulb, and this was the wire. I don't know if this is what it looked like originally or not. I just left it like it was, chopped it, and soldered it right to the super bright LEDs. And then I see here like a little bit of rust on here. There's also rust on the top of the speaker screws. Not sure what that's all about. So I'll take this off and move this out of our way. And I'm thinking that had two long screws for it. Put them over there like that, get them out of our way. And then I'll just go around and take the top cover off of this. And you'll see the little battery laying in there in all of its glory. Sometimes I wonder what the thought process is behind all these screws. You know, is it really necessary to keep RF from escaping? Or do they think maybe the panel might warp over time for certain reasons and let RF escape? Or do they just have a bunch of extra screws in the assembly plant? I don't know. This one back here is a little bit tough to get at because both the connector and the wires are tight. Get that up out of the way. I have to pull a couple of these connectors at the beginning off here because the board doesn't want to come on, or the lid doesn't want to come up on off of the housing. Back out so you can see where I'm working on that. You probably could see them, but well, you'd be too far. So it's these, I think the first two connectors I'll end up having to take out. In fact, I could probably even get it. There's the first two connectors off. Here comes the lid. Yeah. Connector, I guess, was taped onto something there. Here's the battery. I'll zoom in so you can get a look at that. I mean, probably it's original. Doesn't look all that bad. None of the capacitors, the electrolytics look like they're in any serious need of anything. So what I'll do is I'll heat this up and take this battery out. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a little plus over here and a little negative over there right on the circuit board. Here's what I want to replace it with. That would be the plus, and that comes right to this lead. And what I did here, they put a piece of double-faced tape on it to act kind of like a little cushion. So let's just see what we can come up with. Let's see if we can make that work. I mean, I'm sure we can make it work. But the question is, will it work nicely? All right, there's one off. Solder splash. I'm going to get that out of the way. I don't want that to land on anything in there. get this off of this chip. We have a little pad glued onto the battery and glued onto the chip. And there we go. Looks like that's coming off. All right. So the next thing will be to take the other lead off, the positive lead. There's the positive lead. Okay. All right, so now what I want to do is see, will this fit? Oh, I know it'll fit. Okay, then I don't know if you can see. Yeah, you can see in there. So I'll solder that on, and that's the plus. That goes to the plus right there. And that says plus. And then I have some brand new, some Evereadys or I don't know, some name brand battery. I didn't want to try any buy one get 35 free. So let me solder that in. There's the solder. Okay, when the workbench gets this dirty, but trying to work around the camera and everything else that I was using for testing. Okay, so there goes nothing. Here's one. Let it cool down a little bit because it's awfully close to that chip. Actually, it's sitting on top of it. And here goes the second one. So it's melting nicely. Okay. These are Energizer 2032s. So, in case I ever need it, I have an extra. I don't know if you can see, I actually did kind of the same thing to the front too, again, a long time ago. And I converted it from 2 batteries to 1 battery. I don't know if that was an issue, but it's been fine with just 1 battery. But I was reading, somebody had posted that some of them did have just 1 battery up in the front up there. So here goes the battery in place, positive up. I don't know. See how it works. That's all we can do. Got a new battery. It's mounted nice and secure. Oliver's down here helping and just walked in with a string. Thank you, dog. Hang on a second. Oliver, hey, Oliver got a haircut, and when the hair's not his face, I like to say he has people eyes. It definitely looks like something's going on inside that melon head. All right, replacing the lid is just the opposite of taking it off. I don't know if you really want to see all that, or I just have to remember, first off, be very careful when you're doing this. Make sure you don't pinch any wires, because they are very thin wires. So I just kind of let the lid fall on. See, like under there, how they just kind of snag. So before you start tightening down screws, make sure you can see all the way around and that there's no wire making a big U-turn. Make sure you remember too, these last 2 go there. See you on the other side. Okay, Top's all screwed on. All the screws are tight. Those two connectors are put up back on. I double checked to make sure that I didn't mush anything in there, and the board's placed back on there. Next thing goes is this guy turns back over and gets plugged in. So now this one you got to kind of watch, because not plugged in, screwed in. You got to watch because this goes like in between two different wire looms. And again, like I said, you can kind of feel when things aren't going right. But double check, just look all the way around, make sure there's no wires smashed underneath anything. And then once you have it done, it shouldn't rock. If it rocks, that means you're on something, so it's not rocking. There's the rust I was talking about on those screws as well. May pop those out and change them. I don't know what that's all about. I mean, I know since I had it there haven't been any, but there hasn't been any water leaks, but it's not everywhere. You know, you can see the rest of the chassis is fine. Alright, you shouldn't want to watch me tighten this up again, so I'll call you when this is done. Okay, now that stuff's all back in, what I want to do is start to connect the wires back up on this board, and let's see, I guess I could attach a ground wire right there with a screw from the chassis ground here. I guess there's a bunch of different ways. So let me connect this up and put the power supply in and see how the wires run for that. And we should be just about ready to see how it works. Okay, so I got a jumper wire made up here, and it's going to go from the board. I have a little tooth washer to go in here to make sure it gets a good bite. Then it'll go over on this side. This should be well out of the way of the power supply. Okay, there, that's good and tight. Out of the way. So let's see. Looks like the next thing we got is here would be the common. The hot comes through here, the power supply. And then these are the wires to the power supply. I don't think I want that running like that. I'll put this down. Okay, so here's the, come on, here's the power supply, and it'll sit in here like this when it's all said and done. And it sits right up against this other board. So let's see, I guess I'll make it sit kind of where it comes right to the edge of this, so that leaves room for this board to breathe. Doesn't get that hot, so okay, so that's how it'll be. Those two screws I was talking about, they didn't really pose an issue, especially I guess when I put the tape on, it'll raise it even higher. And then I guess I'm going to want to make my connections before I put the board down, because even though it's taped, it's a Velcro tape. I don't want to be on and off, so I'll have to trim these a little bit. These will be trimmed to right about, well, we'll say right about here. I'll trim those. Make sure that's the right one. Yep, the 24 volts DC. Okay, so one of the other things I did too was I ran a ground from, or a redundant ground from the negative side of this to the actual ground of the power supply, and then that'll ground through the chassis to that, so everything will be at the same potential. So let me get these trimmed and attached. One. There's two. So here's where he put his double-faced tape, was right. Oh, sorry, Velcro was right onto this. One here and one here. So we'll see how that lines up. Looks pretty good. Let's actually pull the one part off so it's not having a tendency to be buckled. Put that in there and that in there, like so. And just peel this off. All right, there's one there. Okay. And the other one can go right beside it. I guess that was a different spin on things to make these so that you didn't have to drill holes, you know, take any boards out or drill holes or anything. And I mean, it seems a little unorthodox to use double-faced tape to hold a power supply down on an old radio like this, but it seems to work. I don't really know why you need a ton of screws, but that's how it works. So let's see, then we'll just put this on. I'll put that on, and then when I'm ready to put that in, I'll just pull off the backing so that it's the tape's exposed, and I'll flip it right on in. But before I do that, I want to make the wire connections. So here goes nothing, kid. I'm going to pull off the tape. We still recording? Oh yeah. I'm going to pull off the tape down here. And pull off the tape down here. Make sure all my wires are out of the way. Get ready to push this over. Nice and good. Like I said, I'm going to come back to about that. Okay, it's down. Doesn't look like I smashed any wires. In theory, everything should be hooked up. That being said, I should be able to put power to the radio, and things should work. One of the other things I did, I'm going to mount this fan. I think they glued theirs in, but what I did is I lined it up and I put a little nut and bolt in them. Okay, let's put this back down somewhere. on its little cloth. We're going to turn it around, hook up the antenna to the dummy load just in case things go bad. And for some reason I turn it on and it's in transmit mode. That would be a terrible thing. I didn't have a dummy load on it. Alright, power switch is off. Here comes my power lead up. And let's see. Okay, it's plugged into the radio. No sparks, and I didn't get electrocuted. So far, so good. Now, we're hoping for two things. One, it powers up and everything works. Two, there's not that annoying whine. Ready? Powered up, no whine. Let's try the different bands. Well, and I guess the battery replacement worked too. I don't see the dots. Not that it had dots before, but I believe that's generally the indication that that's not working. So now, let's just pick something here. Well, we had used 28 before. We'll go to like 28.5. Let's speed it up. Sorry. Let's speed it up so that I get to 28.5 sometime today. CW. We're going to see that we have at least 100 volts, 100 watts out. So, into the dummy load. Let's see, carrier level, we'll turn them up. Well over 100. For some reason, it takes a second to quiet, though. Let me make sure that I don't have monitor on. Let's see what happens when I key up in sideband. Oh, let's try. So let me see something back to CW. Let's move that back to where you normally would use it. No notch filter on. Now let's send. Okay, well, we're definitely getting 100 watts out. I don't know if that's ever been there before, and I don't even know if you can hear it, but when I first key it, it takes maybe a second before it totally quiets. Let's see. I can hear a whine in there. It's probably from the power supply, but it's so very slight when I key it. I don't know if you could even hear it. Let me see. Not sure if you could even hear that. Let's see, that's on that. Let's just try it on a different frequency. That scared me. Oh, we'll say 7150 or something like that. Oliver, stop licking your feet. You're making a whine. Don't know if the other power supply did that or not. Kind of interesting. I don't think it did, but let's try a power off and power back on. There's a power off. There's a slight delay, and I can hear the whine, and I guess maybe now I'm just super sensitive to it. I can hear it way in there when there's no RF noise. I don't know if it makes a difference if I touch that or not. Yeah, it's very, very hard to hear it, which I don't think it would ever bother me, and I might not ever have noticed before. But the thing that I don't recognize is the delay in switching over to the shutting the speaker off. There's a little bit of static in there when you first transmit. So back to the drawing board. Well, anyhow, all this seems to work. A button. My carrier was set right at 100 watts, and that's going about 120. So I'll have to look into that as well. Let's just see what we have. The voltage is reading just about 28. I might want to adjust that up just a tad. Yeah, I think I can still get at that. I'll double check that with the voltmeter. Why is the IC not indicating anything? SWR. Power's working. ALC. Compressed, we won't know that. Let's see. Yeah, the current should be showing me up around 10. Well, little things I'm going to have to look into. So I'm not sure if this is going to be, we're going to call this the end of this video because we've gotten everything all in. So that's the end. So the next one will be the new one. So, because this could go on for years. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.